It was a cold, overcast evening in downtown Los Angeles, the kind where the city's neon lights struggled to pierce through the dense gray clouds hanging low over the skyline. Traffic was crawling along Sunset Boulevard, horns blaring sporadically, and people hurried past each other, lost in their own worlds. Keanu Reeves sat quietly behind the wheel of his black vintage Porsche, his face partially hidden beneath a baseball cap, sunglasses shielding his recognizable eyes. Despite his fame, he preferred moments like these, blending into the city's fabric, observing life from a distance. As he waited at a red light near an old gas station, his attention was drawn to a commotion on the sidewalk. A large man on a roaring black Harley-Davidson had pulled over aggressively, his bike's engine still rumbling like distant thunder. The man was clad in a worn leather jacket, patches of skulls and flames stitched into its faded surface. His helmet was off, revealing a rugged face hardened by years of street life and bad decisions. He was yelling, though the exact words were lost beneath the cacophony of traffic. The object of his rage? A small, scruffy, stray dog, its ribs faintly visible beneath a patchy coat. The dog trembled, cowering near the curb, its tail tucked between its legs. It had probably wandered too close, maybe drawn by the smell of food from the biker's bag, or simply curious. Whatever the reason, it had triggered something dark in the man. Without hesitation, the biker dismounted, his heavy boots slamming onto the cracked pavement. He advanced toward the dog, his posture aggressive, radiating malice. Then, in one swift motion, he kicked the helpless animal with brutal force. The dog yelped, its frail body skidding across the concrete, hitting a trash can with a sickening thud before it limped away, whimpering softly, trying to find safety. Keanu's jaw clenched instinctively, his fingers tightened around the steering wheel. He had seen cruelty before, both on and off the screen, but something about this moment ignited a quiet fury within him. The light turned green, but he didn't move. Instead, he eased his car to the side of the road, parking discreetly a few meters away, his eyes never leaving the biker. The man seemed proud of his display of dominance, laughing to himself as he adjusted his jacket and swaggered back toward his motorcycle. But Keanu had already stepped out of his car, moving with that same understated intensity he carried in his films. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting, just a quiet approach, his presence alone enough to command attention. "Hey!" Keanu said, his voice calm but firm. The biker turned, initially dismissive, until he registered who was speaking to him. His smirk faded slightly, replaced by a flicker of recognition and confusion. "What do you want?" the man grunted, his bravado masking an undercurrent of insecurity. Keanu glanced at the trembling dog, now hiding beneath a parked car, then back at the man. "That was unnecessary," Keanu replied quietly, his gaze steady. The biker laughed, shaking his head. "Mind your business, Hollywood." But Keanu didn't move. He just stood there, his stillness more intimidating than any raised voice could have been. People began to notice, phones subtly raised, recording the unfolding scene. The biker's grin faltered. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone who didn't meet aggression with more aggression. "You think you're tough, huh?" The biker sneered, stepping closer, his breath reeking of stale beer and cigarettes. Keanu remained composed. Real toughness isn't measured by how you treat the weak. The crowd around them grew. The biker's ego bristled under the watchful eyes of strangers and smartphones. Desperate to reclaim his dominance, he shoved Keanu hard. But Keanu didn't stumble. Instead, he took a small step back, his expression unchanged, as if analyzing the man, not reacting to him. "Walk away," Keanu said softly, a final warning layered within his calm demeanor. But the biker wasn't done. Fueled by humiliation and rage, he swung a fist, wild and sloppy. Keanu dodged effortlessly, his movements precise, controlled. Years of martial arts training for his films weren't just for show. Before the biker could register what had happened, Keanu had disarmed the situation, not with fists, but with strategy, sidestepping, maintaining distance, diffusing the escalation without escalating it further. The biker stumbled forward, off balance, crashing into a newspaper stand. The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. Defeated, humiliated, and realizing he was outmatched in more ways than one, the biker scrambled to his feet, muttering curses under his breath as he fled on his Harley, disappearing into the city's noise. Keanu exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his body. He turned his attention back to the stray dog, now peeking cautiously from its hiding spot. Kneeling down, Keanu extended his hand, speaking in gentle tones. The dog hesitated but eventually limped forward, drawn by the sincerity in his voice. Carefully, Keanu lifted the injured animal into his arms, cradling it with unexpected tenderness. Without a word to the crowd still watching, he carried the dog to his car, placing it gently on the passenger seat. He gave one last glance at the gathering of onlookers, offering a polite nod before driving away, leaving behind a story that would ripple through social media before the sun even set. But that was just the beginning. The next day, videos of the encounter flooded the internet. Headlines buzzed, "Keanu Reeves stands up against animal cruelty," accompanied by shaky phone footage capturing the quiet intensity of the confrontation. Comments poured in, praise, admiration, speculation. Yet, something felt off. The biker wasn't just some random thug. And as Keanu soon discovered, that small act of kindness had inadvertently entangled him in something far darker than he ever anticipated. The morning sun crept over the Los Angeles skyline, casting long shadows across Keanu Reeves's sleek black Porsche parked in the driveway of his secluded home. Inside, the small, stray dog rested on a soft blanket, its injuries tended to with gentle care. Keanu had barely slept. The events of the previous evening replayed in his mind, not just the confrontation with the biker, but the uneasy feeling that lingered afterward. An itch in the back of his mind that something was wrong. News of the incident had gone viral overnight. Social media was flooded with shaky phone footage of Keanu standing up to the aggressive biker, hailed as a real-life hero. But beyond the likes, shares, and praise, there were comments that caught his attention. Mentions of the biker, cryptic warnings, and references to something called the Iron Serpents. Keanu's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. "You should have minded your own business," a gravelly voice growled before the line went dead. Keanu stared at the screen, his instincts sharpening. This wasn't just about an angry man embarrassed on the street. There was more to it. Later that day, Keanu decided to take the dog to a local vet he trusted in Silver Lake. As he drove, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. His rearview mirror reflected a black SUV trailing a few cars behind, too consistent to be a coincidence. Instead of heading straight to the clinic, Keanu made a sharp turn onto a less-traveled side street, weaving through alleys and back roads. The SUV followed, confirming his suspicions. Pulling into an abandoned parking lot, Keanu exited the car, leaving the dog safely inside. The SUV rolled to a stop, and two men stepped out, tattoos snaking up their necks, leather jackets emblazoned with the emblem of a coiled serpent wrapped around a motorcycle wheel. "The Iron Serpents," Keanu muttered under his breath. One of the men smirked, approaching with false confidence. "You made a mistake last night, Reeves. That dog wasn't worth it, the man sneered.
Keanu didn't respond. His eyes scanned their movements, noting the subtle shifts in their posture, the weight of something concealed beneath their jackets.
"This isn't a movie, man. Walk away," the second thug added, his hand resting on his waistband. Keanu's stance shifted slightly, a calm readiness overtaking him. Years of training weren't just for show, they were part of who he was. When the first man lunged, Keanu moved with fluid precision, sidestepping and delivering a swift elbow to the assailant's temple, sending him sprawling to the ground. The second man drew a weapon, but Keanu was faster, disarming him with a calculated strike and tossing the gun far out of reach. A brief, intense struggle ensued, ending with both men incapacitated on the pavement. Keanu breathed heavily, adrenaline coursing through him. He quickly checked the SUV, finding nothing of immediate concern, but the incident confirmed his fears. He was dealing with more than a bruised ego. Back at home, Keanu dug deeper, researching the Iron Serpents. They weren't just a biker gang, they were involved in illegal activities ranging from smuggling to underground fighting rings. The man from the diner wasn't some random thug, he was a ranking member. The next few days were tense. Keanu noticed shadows lingering near his property, unfamiliar cars parked down the street. Despite the danger, he refused to involve the police. This was personal now. One evening, as Keanu returned from the vet's office with the recovering dog, he found his home broken into. The door hung ajar, lights flickering inside. Keanu entered cautiously, his senses heightened. The house was ransacked, but nothing was stolen. This was a message.
On the wall, scrawled in red spray paint, "We're watching."
That was the final straw. Keanu decided to confront the gang head-on. Using clues from his research, he tracked them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a known front for their operations. Under the cover of darkness, Keanu infiltrated the warehouse. Inside, he witnessed the gang conducting illicit deals, their arrogance blinding them to the lone figure silently navigating through the shadows. Eventually, he was spotted. A chaotic confrontation erupted, Keanu using his environment to his advantage. Improvised weapons, calculated moves, each action precise and effective. In the midst of the chaos, he faced the biker from that night, the man who had started it all. They fought, a brutal clash of fists and fury, years of pent-up rage from both sides exploding in violent release. Bruised and bloodied, Keanu finally subdued the man, holding him at his mercy. "This isn't about the dog, is it?" Keanu rasped.
The biker laughed weakly, blood staining his teeth.
"You were a symbol. Taking you down would make us legends," he croaked. Keanu stared at him, realization dawning. It was never personal until he made it so by standing up for what was right. Leaving the gang to face the authorities, Keanu returned home, the stray dog waiting faithfully. Despite the bruises, there was a sense of peace. He hadn't just saved the dog, he'd dismantled a threat and reaffirmed a simple truth. Doing the right thing often comes at a cost, but it's always worth it. As he sat with the dog, now healed and wagging its tail, Keanu smiled softly. "You're not just a stray anymore," he whispered. "You're home."